welcome.
Happy daylight savings time.
Happy daylight savings time, I guess.
Stupidest, dumbest.
I'm pretty sure we voted on this and we voted to get rid of it, so why is it still here is the question.
Anyways, you're here listening to our podcast called Family Home Evening.
With Bad Mormons.
Where we drink wine and bitch about shit.
Yeah, we do. And sometimes we tell you about embarrassing stories of the things we did or things that our friends did that we'll tell you about.
While drinking or high or just being stupid.
Yeah, pretty much. And we're sisters who grew up Mormon.
And I'm Mandi.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm wearing a pair of new glasses because I'm very old now and I can't see. And I got some fun designer frames and transition lenses, and Charlotte's relentlessly making fun of me about it.
Well, I mean, they're transitional lenses. What am I supposed to do? Not make fun of you about it?
So please, we'd like to hear your opinions. Send us your thoughts about transition lenses so I know whether or not I can continue my existence or if I need to start all over again and find a new pair of glasses.
I think you already know the answer to that. So moving on. What are we drinking?
I decided it's a special occasion since we're officially on vacation, and I've opened a bottle of Frank Family Vineyards, the historic winery established in 1884.
It's quite delicious.
It's a Napa Valley cab.
Oh.
Yeah, Frank Family makes good wine. This is one of the wines that at the grocery store I work at, the homeless people shove down their pants.
Oh, I could see why. It's delightful.
I know. I always wonder if they're selling it or if they're drinking it. They have to be selling it.
Maybe both.
Because they always go for the exact same bottles every time.
Maybe they found the one that they like and they just stick with it.
They have a shopping list.
Right? Put down their pants. Fabulous.
Hey, shout out to our patrons.
Hey, patrons!
Thanks for listening. We love you.
We
very,
just
very much.
We just love you so much.
And we keep trying to think of a fun way that we could all interact better with each other.
Let's go on a cruise.
We haven't put a lot of Patreon content out there in the universe, so we're going to rectify that next week. We're going to have a Zoom. We're going to get some video.
We were pretty busy this week with the kiddos.
We were
in town, so we have excuses.
I was kind of wondering if my voice was even going to translate well for a podcast today, because I feel like it's a little scratchy and growly.
For real. So we went trick-or-treating, scaring children, which included screaming at children. Mm-hmm. We went to medieval times, which was a lot of screaming. We swam in the ocean. Well, I didn't, but the kids did. And stayed up late out back watching movies on the projector. So, cold. Mm-hmm. And then Disneyland, pretty much 2 days. California Adventure, Disneyland, and then Magic Mountain. And so it was a full week of screaming.
So right now it's Sunday night, 4 hours before airtime. No time to edit. And we're just going to do our best.
We're doing what we can for you, because we love you.
I have something to repent for.
Yeah, I bet you do, girl.
Finally, we got the answer about Bus the Third. The bus with the swapped VIN numbers and illegal modifications from a couple episodes back. I did, in fact, return that. Well, I shouldn't say return because it was a different bus, but I gave that bus to my brother, my brother Casey, who had given me all of the other buses. And he said he drove it around and had a really good time with it and wore it out basically to the point of where the pop top was just disintegrating into nothing. So
he also mentioned that the van that you swapped out illegally, the bus that you ended up swapping out the VINs for, he said that one was a pile of garbage. And that, he'd drive it and there would randomly be electrical fires he'd have to put out and replace things. So he's like, it was probably for the best for you.
Wonderful. I'm glad none of that happened to me.
Right.
Except when it did.
Facts.
Actually, that bus that he's talking about, before I swapped out the VIN numbers, we drove that to Utah one time, and as we're getting ready to leave and drive back home to Washington, it broke down maybe like 20 miles outside of Snowville, and we had to call a mechanic to come out and basically fix it for us. Luckily, Dad knew somebody. This dude drove all the way out, like however far that is from Logan, and
that's nice.
Did something, and we were like, well, everybody cross your fingers, let's try to get this bus to Washington, and somehow we miraculously ended up home.
Perfect.
It was probably Jesus watching over us.
Thanks, Jeebus.
So yes, that is the
blonde, blue-eyed Jesus watching over you, making sure that you're safe.
That is the repentance I owe the world, the internet, about Bus the Third.
I have nothing to repent for. I'm perfect in every way, shape, and form, except for, all the times I'm not. But I don't remember those times because I was blacked out drunk. So therefore, it didn't really happen.
Wonderful.
What's that called? The Strokemer's cat? What's it called?
Strokemer's cat?
It's the one where it's like, oh, you don't know if the cat's dead or alive in there if you never check.
Oh, Schrodinger's.
Yeah, that's it.
Cat.
I was like, I can kind of see how it's spelled a little bit, but it's not really coming to me. Maybe I'll have to repent for that tomorrow. And by tomorrow, I mean next week.
Well, should we give the people what they really come here for?
Us bitching about politics?
Mormon Corner.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Just kidding. This is not what you come here for. Or is it? I don't know. People seem to enjoy it, so we're going to keep giving it to you.
Until you email me and tell me to stop at fhebadmormons@gmail.com.
So if this is your first listen, we were gifted a book from a listener called The Miracle of Forgiveness, and we just can't stay away from this book because it's
real garbage.
So awful.
Who's it written by, Mandy? Who's it written by?
It's written by Spencer W. Kimball.
And who's he?
He was the prophet of the church when I was a child, before the next guy, Thomas Monson.
Is he the one that gets the tithing?
Well, there's they call it a quorum, but it's a group of gentlemen that get the tithing, that squirrel it away.
Do they live in mansions?
Probably.
Those fuckers.
Do all religious leaders live in mansions?
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to talk about the cult documentary later, but go on.
Well, that's going to be part of Mormon Corner, too. I was just going to read you a little something that might solidify to our listeners what Family Home Evening was intended to be before we turned it into this monstrosity that it is now.
Perfect.
It says, in The Miracle of Forgiveness, in the paragraph titled Charting a Safe Course, it talks a little bit about, like, what to do when you're dating.
Only over the pants stuff.
No, not sex stuff. Like, how a proper courtship is supposed to be handled.
Over the pants.
No, Charlotte. You can barely even have sex when you're married, much less soak at BYU. Okay? They talk about how to make your vows to each other and how you can never get divorced and, bunch of other bullshit. Anyways, I'm going to kind of jump right in the middle of that paragraph where it talks about Family Home Evening.
Excellent.
In the church, we are trying to shift more of the training and responsibility for the children and young people back to the parents and home as our fundamental concept, and let the primary, Sunday school, and mutual improvement associations, seminary, and other agencies add their blessings. Oh, that's what it's called. MIA, Mutual Improvement Associations.
Oh, not missing in action.
Got it. I blocked that out. Anyway, it's the responsibility of the parents to teach their children in the home and rear them righteously and keep them in a proper environment. In the home, the young people should be so indoctrinated and fortified that the problems of children and youth will be minimal.
Wow.
The Family Home Evening is designed and established for this very purpose. As with prayers, there should be no failure to find time and opportunity for this most rewarding activity. So I think we've been doing a pretty good job.
Every Monday for the last year.
And I'm just going to keep going because it's hilarious to me. As we mentioned before, we spent the last week with our brother, his wife, and their children, which we love them so dearly, and we had the greatest time ever. But when you're hanging around a bunch of kids, every single choice and every single thing you think about relates directly to what's going on with them.
Right.
Like, you're constantly trying to make sure they're not screaming, or they have enough to eat, or they're not getting, pulled out of a roller coaster by their hair, or, right. Stuff like that.
They're not on the edge of throwing a huge temper tantrum.
That nobody's snatching them in a park.
Right.
Anyways, they're very
counting their heads constantly. Where's the third one? Where's the third one?
They're a lot of work. Anyways, and with that, I lead you into the plan for mother to stay at home.
Oh, fabulous.
Tremendously important to the child's upbringing is the presence of mother in the home. Of late years, mothers have left their homes to work in such numbers that church authorities are concerned and make a call to mothers. Come back home, mothers, come back home. That's in quotation marks.
But we're not going to give you back your tithing.
We realize that there is an occasional mother who must go out to work. There are some mothers whose children are all reared and who are thus free to work. But for mothers to leave children when there is not an absolute necessity is a hazardous thing. Generally, children just cannot grow up properly disciplined under babysitters, no matter how good these may be, as they can under a mother who loves them so much that she would die for them.
You're going to die now.
I remember an impressive experience which emphasized to me the value of mothers staying at home. I was in a northwestern city for an evening missionary meeting. I had arrived early in the day and on the only available flight. The stake president was a busy man, and I said to him, "You go on about your work. Just give me a table and your typewriter. I have plenty of things to do all afternoon. Business man things." So I started to work. 2 or 3 hours passed so rapidly that I hardly realized the time had flown, and it must have been about 3 p.m. when I heard the front door open. While the father was out at work, the mother was upstairs ironing and sewing. Now the front door opened a crack, and a child's voice said, "Oh, Mother!" I listened and heard the warm, loving voice from upstairs say, "I'm up here, dear. Do you want something?" "Nothing, Mother," said the little boy, and he slammed the door and went out to play. In a few minutes, the door opened again, and another boy stepped in. A little older voice called, "Mother?" Again, I heard the voice from upstairs say, "Here I am, darling. Do you want something?" "No," was the reply, and the door closed again, and another child went out to play. In a little while, there was still another voice, that of a 15-year-old girl. She came rushing in, quite surprised to find a stranger in the house. She too called, "Oh, Mother!" And to this, the response was again, "I'm up here, darling. I'm ironing." That seemed to satisfy this young girl completely, and she went about her piano practice. A little while later, there was a fourth voice. God, this could just go on for
And then the
chapters.
17th voice, yet again, the 17th voice said, "Oh, Mother!"
This was a fourth voice, a 17-year-old girl voice. How does he know the ages of the girls?
Because he's a perv.
He doesn't say the ages of the boys, that's all I'm saying. The call upstairs was repeated, and the same mother voice responded and invited her to come up if she wanted to, but she just sat down at the living room table and spread out her books and began studying. Mother was home. That was the important thing. Here there was security. Here was everything that the child seemed to need, but suppose they came home and called, "Mother!" only to find a silent house. Or suppose another voice answered, calling out, "Your mother isn't home. She'll be home at 5:30. If this were repeated day after day, the youngsters would stop calling, "Mother!" They would just become independent and get along without Mother and lose that sense of security which comes from mothers being home to answer the greeting and be available to solve their youthful problems.
So what you're trying to tell me is they're just bothering their mom while she's trying to get some ironing done, wasting her time, and then, furthermore, they don't want the children to be able to take care of themselves?
I read specifically, indoctrinate them and don't let them become independent.
So yeah, that's what I'm getting from it. So let's just say you're a 19-year-old missionary coming back. Do you come back at 19 or 20, whatever it may be? So you come back, what is it, 2 years?
21, yeah, you come back at 21.
So you come back at 21 so you can immediately get married because God knows you can't figure out how to take care of yourself because your mother has always been there for you. Is that what I'm hearing? That's what I'm hearing.
Let me just read you the very last paragraph of this. This is doctor, I say it as if he's a doctor. Ex-President Spencer W. Kimball's words to you.
In disgrace.
We must spend more time with the children and less time in clubs and in bowling alleys and at banquets and social gatherings. Fathers and mothers, we must come back home. We must sacrifice some of our other interests and organize our church programs better so that both parents and youth will not be away from the home so much of the time. We must get more people to work in the church so that the burden will not fall so heavily on the few. Then we must organize and do the maximum possible in the minimum amount of time so that there can be more proper home life.
So let me get this straight. Actually, I have no idea.
Actually, it keeps going on to talk about how to chart the course for the children. This all looks terrifying as well. But you know what? We'll have to save some for the next podcast.
Make sure to bookmark that.
I'm going to bookmark that with my Bad Mormons sticker that I bought from the internet on our official site.
Oh, what? Is that FHEBadmormons.com?
No, that's the T Public. We'll get to that.
Oh, right. Oh, do we make a link of that? We need to do that.
Mm-hmm. And so that's Mormon Corner.
So Mormon Corner, great.
But it's not quite Religious Corner because
it is specific to the Mormons. But yesterday, the family had just left. The house was finally quiet for a second. We got real bored. We're like, wait, where's all the fun people? No! And then Mandy put on this cult documentary on HBO, and it was pretty great. We haven't finished it yet, but it starts off with this woman with gigantic hair.
The higher the hair, the closer to God.
Apparently, she's real close to Jeebus because that bitch's hair be crazy. And it was a weight loss church, I guess. And so pretty much everybody's anorexic. And you're fat, you're not close to God. So we're in trouble over here.
She was doing some shit like likening weight loss to
the Holocaust.
Yeah. And like there's people beating their kids because she was also preaching obedience and like right,
your kids, so your kids had to be completely obedient and you couldn't be a fatty. And so the last episode we saw was a family who had beaten or starved their son to death. So we're
her guide, at her direction,
but under her direction, kind of a thing. So we're gonna see how that plays out later. Do we remember what that's called, or am I gonna have to repent for that?
It's called The Way Down.
The Way Down.
It's on HBO.
Right, The Way Down, like your weight is down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's actually, the documentary is called The Way Down, like just W-A-Y.
Oh, okay.
But then her thing was called The Way Down, as in W-E-I-G-H.
Got it. And she was around from like early 90s until 2020. Mm-hmm. Like, and honestly, she might still be around. We don't know because we haven't finished the documentary, but like.
I guarantee you she's not still around, but I'm not going to give you any spoilers why.
I'm so excited. I'm going to finish that tonight.
So yeah, it was just it's always fun to watch cult documentaries because, you know,
our mother married a polygamist when we were 2, when I was 2.
You know, we just had a lot of experience with cults in our lives, right. And we're fascinated by them. And
how does one join a cult? L. Ron Hubbard said the fastest, easiest way to make a lot of money is to start your own religion. So for anybody who would like to join my religion, let me know. Email me at fhgbadmormons@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not wrong. That was the whole NXIVM thing. That was the whole, I mean,
our cousin the prophet thing.
Yeah.
Our cousin
the prophet?
Our cousin the prophet.
But he doesn't have any money.
No, that's the point, is he started his own religion. He had a lot of followers, and then as soon as he started demanding tithing, people like
bounced
out, which I think is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's weird that anybody was following him in the first place, but
yeah, it's just, you know, Jerry Falwell, Tammy Faye Baker, like
right, Joel Osteen or whatever.
Yeah, all those mega churches just raking in the fucking money. We talked about this way back at the beginning when we started the podcast, but if you haven't seen it, the Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, it's so good.
I believe that was also on HBO.
It was also on HBO, yep.
That's a really fun, good.
John Goodman. What is his name? The funny one. Danny McBride and Adam Levine. And that's what you said. Oh, Devine.
Adam Devine. Adam Levine is from Maroon 5.
Adam
from Workaholics, the funny one.
Okay, fine.
Also from Pitch Perfect.
He's also in Modern Family.
Anyways, we're getting sidetracked. Where The Righteous Gemstones is
very
hilarious
funny.
If you want to watch something about a bunch of people duping people into giving them their money in the name of Jesus.
Which a lot of people do.
Man, they still do. They're still doing it.
And they still give their money over, and I don't get it.
Anyway.
So that's great. So yeah, The Way Down. Watch it, HBO. It's great.
And then we'll talk about it next week when we have all of our facts in order.
Right?
Because it looks very interesting.
So that was my cool shit.
I have some cool shit.
Yeah?
We just passed an infrastructure bill.
Oh,
with the help of 8 Republican senators.
That's right. I saw that. What's her stupid face? I won't say her full name. Marjorie had said, call and, you know, like, shame them or whatever. And we're like, and somebody else wrote, call them and congratulate them on doing the right thing.
That's what I wrote. That was our Twitter you were reading.
Oh. I thought you were retweeting somebody else's.
No, that was my word.
Oh, hey, good job.
Thank you. Yeah, so
Family home evening at Bad Mormons Corp.
The Democrats, President Joe Biden passed an infrastructure bill that was very expensive. It was in the trillions, 1 trillion. Actually, don't quote me on that number because I didn't look it up. But it's a ton of money. It's a lot. And it's, the Republicans are all up in arms about it because it's so expensive. And it is. But the idea is that it's for infrastructure. So roads and bridges, water, clean water, power, public transportation, jobs.
Right.
Internet, broadband, like that's a big part of it. Airports, rail. So the kind of things that we need to function as a society that have been crumbling, and that was actually one of Trump's big selling platforms, is he was going to get an infrastructure bill passed.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was that was going to be so great, and we were going to get all these things that we've been so desperately needing. And did he accomplish that in 4 years? No, he built part of a wall covering a portion of the Texas border in Mexico. That's what he got done. So, God, I hate that guy. But anyway, we got that done. There's also 80% of the U.S. population is now vaccinated.
Oh, fabulous.
So that's a big win. That's some cool shit. I was really stoked about that. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like there's a lot of, Joe Biden is whatever. He's not my fucking favorite. If there would have been another option, I can't say I would have voted for him.
Right.
But it's nice to feel like we're actually making some sort of progress forward.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I know it could be argued that Trump couldn't get anything done because there was so much opposition in his way, but there really wasn't. I think they had majority of the branches of government, and he did everything he could to make sure that his family didn't pay taxes, or that a lot of these, Mitch McConnell types, and frankly, even, Democratic sides don't have to pay that much in taxes, but how did that help the everyday person?
Oh, yeah, dude. If Trump had actually gotten an infrastructure bill passed, we would have been flying fucking stealth bombers over the Lincoln Memorial. There would have been Trump bridges unveiled in only in like key demographics, so only in swing areas.
Right.
There would be a new bridge called Trump Bridge. You know what I mean? Like it just would have been
that never happened.
It just would have been a whole situation. I know we've likened this before, we've mentioned this before, but what's happening in America now with the current state of the Republican Party is so very similar to the rise of Nazis in the 1920s, 1930s in Germany. They were a political party, and they were getting elected, and they were doing the same shit that Republicans are doing now, and we weren't alive to see it, and that's why people can't understand that it's really fucking scary, and it's important to pay attention to, because it happened outside of their lifetime, and the fucking fall of Rome happened outside your lifetime too, but we look at history and we try not to repeat it.
Right?
If we want to survive.
It made sense to me, learning about the Holocaust and Hitler and all of that, and saying how was this allowed to be happening? Like the few outnumber the majority outnumber the few. So clearly I don't want my neighbors getting murdered. I would never allow for something like that. But I can kind of see now how people, they just get brainwashed, and they stop seeing people as people, and then they just start seeing them as the enemy. Exactly.
So it's very very similar. What's happening now to what happened in Germany. Moving on, unless you had anything else for cool shit.
No, that's about it.
I got a message on Instagram from a listener who suggested that we change our What's on Twitter segment. We changed the title of that to This Motherfucker. Which I was like, that's so brilliant.
Yeah, I like that. I'm into it.
So this motherfucker. So we're going to have to officially change our little templates. But this week's segment called This Motherfucker, a California middle school teacher, Ventura, California. So this is
not that far away.
Just north of Los Angeles.
Kind of where Magic Mountain is.
Yep.
Where we just
Real
were
close. She was fired for telling kids that, well, the headline of the article said she was fired for telling kids that Trump was still the president of the United States. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I'm going to click on that, opened it up. It's way fucking worse than that. She says, this is Yahoo News. A teacher who's not been identified by name has made claims about President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, Trump, and the COVID-19 vaccine. Now I'm quoting what she says right now. Hunter Biden, for example, is doing deals with China and Ukraine where he was funneling money illegally. He also had child pornography on his laptop. He was having sexual intercourse with his own niece. The teacher who worked for Anacapa Middle School said on the recording. Somebody recorded her saying that. She also says, if you have a baby in a hospital, they don't want to give it back to you if you're not vaccinated. This is a complete power...
What grade is this?
Middle school, it says.
Okay. So these are your 10 to 14-year-old kids?
Yeah. She says, if you have a baby in the hospital, they don't want to give it back to you if you're not vaccinated, the teacher said on the recording. This is a complete power control threat. And it actually says, in this article, it says it's unclear whether she's still employed. They haven't gotten back to her, or back to the news about whether or not they've fired her.
I know unions are pretty strict, but still.
It's an 8th grade class.
Okay.
So the
grade is like 12, 13, I want to say.
Yeah. An 8th grade student told his mom this after class one day. He's like, I'm never going to get vaccinated. And she's like, what the fuck? You know, why you would never be vaccinated? And oh yeah, and Trump, did you guys know that Trump's still president? And then, you know, they're like, no, that's not true. And he's like, well, my teacher told me teachers know everything, and basically caused this like rift in their family.
Dang.
Right? Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yet not at all surprising.
Right.
Christ.
And this is in California. Imagine what's going on.
Oh, there are some fucking Looney Tunes in this state. I'll tell you what.
That's true. That is true. I was also, there was a lot of different things I could pick off of Twitter for this motherfucker. But one thing that kind of stood out to me that I wanted to point out to the listeners or anybody who's interested is that, actually, I'm just going to read you this tweet from Kurt Eichenwald. He says, if the modern GOP was around in the 1950s and voiced their anti-vax lies, we would still have polio.
Right.
And he says, Islamic fundamentalists in Pakistan and Afghanistan voice the same conspiracy theories to this day, about getting vaccinated. Those are the only countries that still have polio. But they're saying that about the polio vaccine. So basically it's just the parallel between Islamic fundamentalists and Christian fundamentalists is very, very, very similar. And you always hear, you know, that there was the hashtag Texas Taliban, and they're always talking about, you know, likening conservatives to the Taliban, which kind of isn't fair to the Taliban.
Right.
A little bit.
Because the Taliban's not nearly as terrible as these fucking whack jobs.
Well,
I mean, they're not great, don't get me wrong.
No,
but...
the Taliban is awful and terrible, but it's kind of like lumping in a whole race of people into being Islamic terror. Like, the Nation of Islam isn't all the Taliban.
But the Taliban...
Taliban's terrible.
Right. But we had talked about this on an episode before, was that even the Taliban think that some women should have some rights that the Christians don't believe that women should have. So it's just like...
That is true.
Again, by no means am I saying the Taliban is even remotely good, but they're worse than certain Christians.
Yeah, conservative Christians are,
there you go,
in some circumstances, worse than the Taliban.
Right. Correct.
Yeah,
that's
totally
what I was trying to say.
Right. But the parallels between them are so very similar, and the fact, like, even just waving the flags off the trucks.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, it's all very similar.
Like, shoving that bullshit down everybody's throats is so similar. And it's just like, but yet these people view the Taliban as terrorists and awful people, and they don't see that they're behaving the exact same way.
Right.
You know, forcing their religion on everybody else. So, anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't realize that in a modern day society, those two countries still have polio. And it's because of their anti-vax beliefs.
I know. Everybody has the polio vaccine here. No problem. So those people who keep trying to say, it hasn't been tested long enough. I've said it before and I'll say it again. COVID has been around for a very, very long time. COVID and SARS are the same family. And there's COVID-16, there's COVID-12, and that's based on the year when they found that strain of COVID. They have been testing and trying to come up with a vaccine for COVID for years. Mm-hmm. COVID-19 just happened to be way more deadly than the other ones had been, which is why everything got shut down. And then they gave all the funding to it, so hence we now have a vaccine. It didn't just come out overnight. Right. They've been studying the strain forever, the whole COVID forever, but this specific strain forced them to actually put a lot of money and more research into it to get it done faster so less people would die.
Right.
Actually,
This
when my memory...
motherfucker.
Well, I had a memory pop up, too, on Facebook, and it had the... Because this is about when things started going crazy. Oh, no, I was going through and trying to organize pictures, and I had saved memes to share because I'm trying to just clean up my picture bank. And it was, now just remember, if in a few months from now, nobody gets sick and you think this whole thing was a waste of time, that was kind of the point.
Exactly. Well, it's trending down, so hopefully it'll continue to trend down. But we are going into, cold and flu season, so...
Is there a reason why the cold and flu season is always in the winter? Because we already discussed... Well, we discussed, you and I, not on the podcast, was that... Because our niece had taken a shower and came to go watch movies in the backyard. And we're like, you're going to catch a cold. It's like, that's not how colds get spread. It's a virus. But, why would the colder weather... Just because you're indoors more often, right? Would that be why it spreads more so?
I don't know.
I'll repent for it next week. Come here, repent.
Do you think now's a good time to hear a word from our sponsors?
I think that would be a great time.
Welcome back to the show.
And we're back.
Boy, do we have some stories for you.
We sure do.
We have a few really good stories this week. Not all of them are ours. At least one of them is ours, but all of them are really good.
Perfect.
So, this one was sent to us by a listener that, funny, this is going to be kind of a theme throughout the stories, wants to remain nameless. We'll just call her Kate.
Oh, yes.
So, Kate sends us this story. I'm gonna read the email to you. She says, I'm on a girls' trip in Vegas playing poker at the Bellagio. I give the cocktail server a 20 right out the gate, so naturally I get very drunk very fast. The tips and the drinks are flowing. She says, I'm usually fair to okay at playing cards. My poker face needs some work, LOL. But for some reason on this night I was on fire, ! All caps. I was winning with bluffs left and right. I was actually being dealt awesome hands all night. So here I am, drunk on a winning streak in Vegas. I'm feeling fabulous and super cocky and start talking all this shit. Like a lot of shit. To all the other players at the table. After, I want to say 20 minutes, a pit boss comes over and grabs me firmly by the arm and asks if he can have a word. He makes me pick up my chips, and when we're a few feet from the table, he walks alongside as he has me escorted out of the gaming area. When I ask why, he explains to me that one of the people I was taunting at the table was not the kind of guy you want to be talking shit to, and that I was pretty close to getting myself into a situation I couldn't handle. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but apparently the pit boss was concerned for my safety, and then it's like a laughing, crying emoji. So I find my friends, and we go back to the room to do some coke. Everyone is super wasted, and one of the girls asks if we've ever put blow in our butts. ? She says, let's just say the night ended at 3 p.m. the next day, and I couldn't stop talking for like 12 hours straight, but at least I didn't get beat up or whacked by the mob. It's always fucking Vegas.
Always fucking Vegas.
Always fucking Vegas.
Dear listener, please don't put blow up your butt. It's a terrible idea.
Actually, a lot of people do that. It's called shelfing.
It's the weirdest fucking shit.
You can put anything up your butt.
Well, I heard about booze, but I also heard of people dying that way, too, because your lining of your anus is so thin, it goes straight to your bloodstream.
Yeah, any drug you want to take, it'll get to you much faster if you put it up your butt. It's called shelfing.
I also read that should you be camping or, in an area where you can't get a paramedic out there, and you have a diabetic friend that is taking too much insulin, you put, like, a lollipop or some, like, candy up their butt, and that'll bring them back down.
Anything up your butt gets into your body faster than ingesting it orally.
Butter. Can I put butter up my butt?
You can.
Am I going to get fatter faster? That's the question.
I don't know. We're going to try it. We'll report
we'll
back
let you
to
guys know.
Anyway, so there's a hot tip from Bad Mormons, shelfing. Put it up your butt. It'll get you there faster.
Just don't chug whiskey up your butt because you'll die of alcohol poisoning. It's a thing.
Know your tolerance.
Please don't put things up your butt. So I have a story that's not my story, that is a friend's story, who also asked to remain anonymous. We'll call him Jack. So my friend Jack. they decided to go on Big Thunder Mountain. And for those who've never been to Disneyland, that is a roller coaster, but it doesn't have any like loops. It's just really sharp turns, and it goes very fast. And so when they got in, they sat in the front seat, and Jack said to his friend Peter, wouldn't it be funny if we could get in the engine of the train? Which, by the way, the engine has nothing to hold on. There should not be people in there ever. And so they said, yeah. So they put the lap bar down, but not tightly. And then as the train starts going and it goes around the first, it has to build up some momentum, they shimmy out from underneath the lap bar and get into the actual engine area. So they do that while it's going really fast around sharp turns. Every time I ride that ride, I'm like, God damn it, Jack. How did you not die during this? But anyway, so they're in the engine. They're there for just a little bit, and then they get back into their seat. And then as they're starting to climb a big hill before it goes super crazy, the attendants stopped the ride and then just came by, rechecked their things, made it sound like, oh, yeah, you're going to finish the ride. It'll keep going. But then security showed up and escorted them out of the ride. And I guess they got to go down into some, cool, tunnels of the roller coaster that most people don't see because, they had to walk off of it and not finish the ride, and they were escorted out of the park. And Disneyland has a semi-famous policy of you can't come back today, but you're welcome back any other time or whatever. I think so. Yeah, it was just fucking idiot, and of course they were drunk.
It's like it's like you can come back anytime, just not
today. That's what it is.
And they have their own. Disneyland has their own jail.
Right. They've got. Jack was saying that they actually have a badge that says Mickey Police.
That's a good one.
Yeah. No, it's just still can't believe they didn't get thrown from the car. I mean, it's a freaking roller coaster.
Right. It goes fast. I think if I understood the story correctly, I think they only got back in the car that they were supposed to be in when the ride stopped, because it was stopped in the tunnel on the way up the hill, and they stopped the ride and they're like, oh shit, we're gonna get in trouble. They got back in.
Maybe I'm not sure.
I guess it's semantics.
Right.
Either way, they were riding in the decorative, the decorative engine of a roller coaster.
Nothing to hold on to.
It's still alive.
Good for them.
Yeah, being at so many parks. I think I've already told this story, but I'm gonna just tell it again quickly because it's relevant. From being on so many roller coasters the past week, of the time that I got on Goliath and the lap bar didn't click down. I did tell this one already, right?
It doesn't matter.
Sitting in the very, very I always like to ride in the back car of the roller coaster because it goes the fastest. You don't have any delay. You hit the top and then you're pretty much just going fast. And I was on Goliath, which is notorious for its 255-foot drop that goes 85 miles an hour.
Nice.
And at the time, it was the longest and fastest drop in the world when it first opened.
Oh, fun.
So it was shortly after it had opened that I was on it. But yeah, my lap bar it clicked down at first, and then once the roller coaster started going, it unclicked. And no matter how hard I would push on it, it was just like a spring. It wouldn't click into place. And there was no seat belts. There are seat belts now.
Right.
But there were not seat belts then. And I went all the way down that drop, and then just after it starts to go back up again, it finally clicked. But I was just trying to figure out a way to wrap my foot around the bar that would have been the lap bar, holding it in place just to try to stop myself from flying out of it if I was to have to try to ride the whole ride with no security.
So I think about that sometimes when I'm on the roller coaster, and I'm like, so I would hope that the centrifugal force would keep you in, and you would only have to hold on a little bit. But yeah, no, fuck that. Terrifying.
Well, the other story I was going to tell, so this one just happened to us because we were just at Six Flags a couple days ago. We went on one of the new roller coasters there called West Coast Racers.
Yeah.
And I mean, that shit, okay, I'm a big girl. I got kind of a fat stomach. The bar goes down just fine, right? But then there's a point in that ride where it's I can feel myself slipping up out from underneath that lap bar, fat stomach and all, not holding me in. And the only thing holding me in is the straps up above, which I'm sure the ride is designed to do. But it's you feel like you're going to fall out of that motherfucker. Did you feel that way?
No, I felt pretty good.
Maybe the fat stomach was working against me, but it was crazy. And then actually that was the story I wanted to tell, just to add another roller coaster story in there, was that, so I've got this pair of earrings that I found, I want to say 8 years ago, and they're silver, so they don't tarnish, but they're light, and there's no backs to lose or poke you. They're just like the perfect size, the perfect earrings. I love them. I wear them like every day. And my dumbass wore them on that roller coaster, but I'd been wearing them on roller coasters all day long, no problem. And sure enough, this thing jerked me around so much. I'm slipping out of my seat, and I'm, banging up against the shoulder bars, and my head's banging around in there, and it just rips one of my earrings out. And I was like, no! And the whole rest of the ride, and it's cool because it's like, you ride the track once, and you're racing another roller coaster. And then you kind of switch places, and then you ride the thing again.
Right.
Racing them on the opposite side. Yeah. And so the whole time I'm not having any fun because I'm just so sad that my earring's gone and I'll never be able to replace it because I got it so long ago and I'm super bummed. And I even tell Charlotte, I told you when we pulled in, I was like, I'm so sad about my earring. And I thought I could hear something rattling around, but it's not like you're in a cage or anything. You're in a roller coaster.
Right.
And so I got out of there and I looked back, and sure enough, right behind my seat, there's like a bar, an open bar that connects to the track, and then you can see the track through it, and then the seat comes up behind me, and just resting perfectly in the middle of that bar was my fucking earring.
Nice.
I was like, victory. And I was like having a hard time getting out of there because it's so tight anyway, but I'm like trying to move my fat butt around and like turn around and dig down and get my earring, and there's all these people in line just looking at me like, oh my god, what's wrong with that girl?
Like, I need my earring, bitch.
And then I held up my earring for the whole crowd to see, and I got off the roller coaster. I was like, I found my earring, and a bunch of people clapped and laughed, and it was funny.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah,
To say, yes, I do believe you told the Goliath lap band story. For those who'd like to go hear it again, head to our earlier podcast of the one where we rode roller coasters with Iron Man.
Oh yes. Teenager hump juice.
Teenager hump juice. That's right.
That's what it was called. Yeah, I probably did a better telling of that story.
Well, I was just saying, if you're on a theme and you want to go back and listen to earlier episodes, Robert Downey Jr. and I are boyfriend, girlfriend.
That's not true, Charlotte.
Okay, I won't lie to the listener.
Do we have any other stories?
No, not ones we haven't already told.
Well then, how should we be excellent to each other?
Remember that the person you're thinking is a monster is also a human being, Alex Jones.
Even
Chris
Alex
Tucker.
Jones? Even Tucker Carlson?
That's his name. Chris Tucker's fine. I'm so sorry, Chris Tucker. I didn't mean you.
Chris
Tucker Carlson.
You're hilarious. Well, I would
Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, is not hilarious. He's a monster. But he is still a human being that I don't need to see in a concentration camp.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to just say to everyone who might still be listening to this show after all this time, after the 40 whatever minutes that we've just been babbling on with no voices, in a world filled with Aaron Rodgerses, be a Colin Kaepernick.
Yes.
And also, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. You can become a patron for only $3 a month and help us continue this shit show of a podcast we keep recording every week for you.
We're on all the social medias: Facebook, Instagram,
Pinterest,
LinkedIn.
And we're always looking for likes and shares and subscribes on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't done it yet, please head on over and check it out. And thank you so much for listening to our show.